Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening. I am Mitra Abbaspour, Houghton curator and head of the Division of Modern and Contemporary Art at Harvard Art Museums. I'm honored to represent the art museums in this evening's program, which, much like the exhibition it celebrates, is a partnership with the Peabody Museum of Archaeology and Ethnology. I am joined by Ilisa Barbash, who you will see later this evening, curator of visual anthropology at the Peabody. Together, we thank you for gathering with us tonight for the conversation with the acclaimed multimedia artist, Joana Choumali. Before introducing this evening's program and our honored guest, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge some of the communities that have made such a gathering possible, beginning with a reflection on the place in which we convene. Harvard University is built on the ancestral land of the Massachusetts, the original inhabitants of what is now known as Boston and Cambridge. We pay respect to the people of the Massachusetts tribe, both past and present, and honor the land itself, which remains sacred to the Massachusetts people today. In acknowledging the origins of this land and its people, we honor the long and continuous history of cultural and knowledge production in this place that has come to be renowned as a hub of inquiry, study, and conversation. It is through these very actions that we are invited to learn from experiences other than our own, to gain insight into geographies distant from those in which we inhabit, and to thus not only expand our worldview, but to also become more sensitive to our neighbors and our immediate surroundings. Joana Choumali joins us, having journeyed from her hometown of Abidjan, the capital city of Côte d'Ivoire. Her multimedia practice is deeply rooted in a love for and a study of her home, and begins not in her studio, but rather walking, absorbing, and thinking through its streets, beaches, and marketplaces, a subject that we will explore further this evening. Joana studied graphic arts in Casablanca, Morocco, and spent her early career working as an art director in advertising before turning to photography. In her earliest photographic series, Abre and Resilience, Joana explored complex sociocultural subjects through the genre of portraiture. Widespread international recognition came in 2019 when Joana was the first African winner of the Prix Pictet for her series Ça va aller. Photographing in the seaside town of Grand Bassam in a period following a violent terrorist attack, Joana used her iPhone to capture pictures that recalled her memories of vacationing there. It was in this series that Joana first began using embroidery to transform her pictures, describing the act of stitching as a form of repair. For the next 3 years, from 2019 to 2022, an exhibition titled Hope that emerged from that body of work traveled internationally, including exhibitions at the Victoria and Albert Museum, London, the Daikanyama Hillside Forum in Tokyo, as well as venues in Moscow, Zurich, Shanghai, Dublin, Monaco, and Milan. Since then, her photographic practice has become decidedly multimedia. Returning to a DSLR camera and higher resolution pictures, she prints on textile and employs techniques of embroidery, applique, and quilting to create. 2 works from her ongoing series, Al-Bahian, are in the Harvard Art Museum's collection. Joana joins us tonight thanks to the Robert Gardner Fellowship in Photography, an honor given annually by the Peabody Museum to an established practitioner of the photographic arts to create and subsequently publish through the Peabody Museum photographs on the human condition anywhere in the world. In 2020, Joana was selected unanimously as a recipient of the Robert Gardner Fellowship for her proposal, Yugu Yugu. Joana titled her project Yugu Yugu, a term meaning shake shake, that is used idiomatically to describe secondhand clothing. In her proposal, she put forward an exploration of the intersection of social, economic, and cultural issues as they meet with community identification and secondhand clothes, specifically fast fashion and logo t-shirts in West African marketplaces. With this series, Joana began by creating moments of encounter and conversation in the marketplace. Once she had created a substantial grouping of portraits, she returned to her studio, where she spent time reflecting on these interactions and their meanings. The result, which we will discuss this evening, is a series of photographic tapestries in which Joana has created digital composite faces for each figure, printed the portraits at a life-size scale onto cotton cloth, and then she cuts each figure from their background in order to add batting, quilting, and embroidery, and finally pieced together multiple parts within layers of thin tulle netting that she embroiders, leaving the strings to anchor each body in place. Peabody curator Ilisa Barbash, who oversees the Gardner Fellowship process and will join me this evening, shared that Joana's selection was very special to the Peabody. Quote, as a museum of anthropology, Joana's focus on her home city of Abidjan, her active engagement with the subjects of her photographs, her combination of technology with handcrafted elements, which animate her photography in new ways, made her our unanimous choice, end quote. The exhibition, Joana Choumali, Languages of West African Marketplaces, is the debut presentation of this series, Yugu Yugu, that emerged from this fellowship. We offer gratitude to the memory of filmmaker, author, and photographer Robert Gardner, whose endowment of his eponymous fellowship has extended the legacy of his own work as a documentarian and scholar of the world, and to his wife, Dr. Adele Pressman, for her continued engagement and support. Thank you also to the anonymous members of the Gardner Fellowship Selection Committee. Tonight's programming is supported by the M. Victor Leventritt Lecture Series, Endowment of the Harvard Art Museums. Modern and contemporary art programs at Harvard Art Museums are made possible in part by generous support from the Emily Rao Pulitzer and Joseph Pulitzer Jr. Fund for Modern and Contemporary Art. I want to extend special thanks to the former Menschel Curator of Photography, Makita Best, who first brought Joana Choumali's work into the Art Museum's collection and instigated this project. Any exhibition calls on every single department in a museum, and one that necessitates constant coordination of two museums requires an especially expert level of organization and communication. The success of this two-museum collaboration is due to the diplomatic diligence of Senior Curatorial Assistant Bridget Hintz. I want to acknowledge also the many members of the Peabody and Harvard Art Museum staff who were essential to realizing the success and presentation of this exhibition and tonight's program. Joana Choumali joins us, that is not the final page. And to Joana Choumali's representatives, without whom this globe-spanning exhibition would not have been possible. Maria Pia Bernardoni in Italy and Angela Westwater of Sproni Westwater Gallery in New York City. Thank you for being with us tonight. Language, the ways that it moves through economies, lives within cultures, and crosses continents is a central theme of this exhibition. It has been an honor to collaborate with two doctoral candidates, Atem Makin and Marie Prunier, who translated into French all the texts in this exhibition, in the galleries, the press materials, and programming, such that we could realize our commitment to offer a bilingual presentation. They will join us tonight, and while the program will be delivered in English, they're here to assist both Joana and anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in French during the question and answer period. Joanna, Lisa, and I will be in conversation for about 40 minutes, after which we will open the floor to questions. At your turn, please wait for the microphone to come to you so that everyone can hear you as well as the recording. And after the conversation, which we will conclude just after 7, there will be a time to view the exhibition with us upstairs on the 3rd floor. We're staying open late until 8 p.m. for that occurrence this evening. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Joana Choumali.
Joanna, we've had a wonderful week here.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Thank you. And it culminates with this event this evening. One of the things I had the joy of doing with you is a lot of walking around. And you're always taking pictures. And I wanted to talk to you about walking and what that means to you and how that is a part of your process.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me here in Boston, Harvard Art Museum. Working.
Can we turn up the volume slightly?
We're going to work on do you want to keep talking and
Yes.
you can work on your volume?
Working has become a very big part.
Louder, please, for Joanna.
Allô? Ça va?
Better.
Okay. Working has become a very important part of my work. I have always been a walker, loner. I love to walk around alone since childhood. But we had the possibility to shoot portraits, to shoot pictures of everything, everywhere, with the smartphones. Taking pictures while I was working became very a daily practice. So as you could see, I always observe my environment everywhere I go, and I photograph for the pleasure of photographing every day. And this has naturally become me. I hope I will remember what
We are giving you a behind-the-scenes presentation of how things are organized. So
this has become walking is. That's really a good question, because actually I wasn't thinking about it that way. But each of my portraits of my project have are linked to the act of walking and shooting pictures since actually my project Savale, and it has continued until this project Yugu Yugu, in which I was obliged. I had to walk and work in the markets to get the pictures that I was looking for.
So those two projects were done in the Ivory Coast, and I know that you live in the Ivory Coast. You told me you will never really leave the Ivory Coast, even though you're a traveler. So, well, please speak about that. But also, can you talk about what it's like to work in the place where you live?
I think it's the same in every part of the world, but I dearly love my country and my city, Abidjan. And I like to explore places that I'm supposed to know, because every day I believe that there's something new that's happening, but it's the same around the world. And for example, my ongoing project Abidjan, which is about my experience of the sunrise, the early morning. I walk every day in the morning between 5 to 7 a.m. to photograph landscapes, and then I will add layers of photographs and embroidery on it. But this project cannot go without the act of walking and the land, the exploration of the land, and for me at this, according to the time of the day, the moment of the day, the land and the city is different in any country, especially in Côte d'Ivoire. So when I walk early in the morning and I photograph the place, it feels like I'm doing a portrait of the land, of the space, and that I will see it wake up in the morning, from the morning to the noon and the rest of the day. And what was the question, please?
Oh, about working in the Ivory Coast.
Yes, working in the Ivory Coast is, for me, it's not something that I have decided to do on purpose at the beginning, but the fil en aiguille, I have realized that I am documenting simultaneously my experience of the landscape, the outer landscape, that is going to be superimposed by my inner landscape, and also the third layer will be how the viewer will perceive the work and how it will resonate with them. And so I am doing a very intimate archive of my country and my city, and Abidjan and Côte d'Ivoire, and especially Abidjan, is a very cosmopolitan city. You have lots of immigrants from West Africa, but not only. Lots of strangers, people from Europe or China, and it's a very rich culture, and it's a country that is very welcoming to. We associate and we integrate a lot other influences. So sometimes Abidjan is called the Little New York or the Little Manhattan or Petit Paris, because it's one of the rare cities in Côte d'Ivoire, in Africa, where you can feel at home very easily. There's not one main language, so we have 64 languages in Côte d'Ivoire. So the main language is French, and then there's Nushid, which is the slang, and it's a very vivid and lively experience to watch. So there's so many new concepts even in the language that are born every day. So I'm never tired to explore the cultures with a S of my country.
You've spoken a lot about how the camera is a way of connecting to that community, to the landscape, or to people, and it acts as a connector and a bridge. And I wondered if you could speak about how you go from walking and thinking through your city to the engagement with photography.
I have always been a very quiet child, a loner, and quite shy. And when I started photography, I was very nervous about the fact that I had to go to talk to other people and to convince them to pose for me. And when I started my first project in studio, it was easier for me to wait for the subject to come to my studio so that I could do the photography. But at the same time, I realized that when I was behind my camera, I was less shy, and that I could speak and notice details that I couldn't maybe be bold enough to talk about with the people if I wasn't with the camera. And then when I continued the other project, I realized that more and more I felt more comfortable with how I could engage with other people when I knew that I was holding the camera. But I also realized that I got some, it was a way to have a conversation, a wordless conversation with the people I was photographing. And then I realized that when I was finished with the work, and then the work was exhibited, there was another reaction, and I was amazed to see that most of the time people were spot on with what I wanted to say without having to use words. So it was perfect for me, and that's how I realized that I visualized the lens of the camera as a bridge between me and the person I'm going to photograph, but also me and all the people who will see it online or in an exhibition, or even a bridge between cultures, between prejudices, against prejudices, and also a bridge to bring us together, even spiritually. So photography is the basis of all my work. I'm not sure that I'm going ever to do a project that doesn't integrate photography. All my works are photo-based, and I really love the fact that through photography I can explore the world, share ideas without using words, and also learn a lot about myself.
How did that then lead you to engage with the marketplace? How did you take photography into the marketplace?
I was, as you said before, I was interested. I saw many people with t-shirts with messages, and I was in my head asking questions, and I wanted to discover why this phenomenon was happening so much in my country and other countries of West Africa. So that's how I felt like if I wanted to find available material for my project, I had to go, not call people in the studio. It was I had to go out of my comfort zone and go and meet people in the marketplace, where you find most of people who have t-shirts with messages. And so that's why I went where they were sold, where they were imported and exported, and also where I could find people who were wearing it. That's why I went in the markets.
You give us, I've heard this wonderful story that you have told about beginning the Yugu, like even before that, though, you noticed logo t-shirts, and I wonder if you could tell us about that, what first struck you about the logo t-shirts?
Yes, the first time I thought about working on this project, I was actually shooting a photojournalistic project in San Pedro that was supported by the Magnum Foundation, and the subject was women making charcoal in the south of Côte d'Ivoire, in San Pedro, and women, and mostly women and daughters and their daughters. And what is surprising is that men deserted this practice because they thought that it was too difficult to do.
What, working with charcoal?
Yes, making charcoal is very, very difficult, very hard, and dangerous as well. And I met with this little girl who had a t-shirt on, and there were many people with these t-shirts as well. And this little girl was maybe 8-10 years old, and her t-shirt, it was written, I make more money than I can spend. But this is supposed to be a fun t-shirt, but in this environment it was completely unsettling and sad to see that this little girl wasn't going to school, and she was working in a very, very, very hard environment and very poor, and wearing this t-shirt. And there was another person who had I'd rather go at the beach.
I'd rather go
to the beach.
Yeah.
So I was struck by the irony of all these messages, and how we were lost in translation, and started shooting pictures and letting it marinate to see what I was going to do with it. And I started in 2016. It's been a long time. And when I got the opportunity to work on the fellowship, I thought that this was the best opportunity to really focus on this project and work as I would like to.
And can you tell us a little bit about the process of then walking through the marketplace and how you found people and what your encounters were like? And what did you notice first? Did you notice the people, the t-shirt?
I always noticed the t-shirt first because there are all kinds of t-shirts, but what called my attention were the t-shirts, the most ironic ones. When the message, I was selecting people, or people were selecting me, I don't know, with the messages, first the text, what was the text, and then I would ask them if they wanted to pose for me, explaining about the project, and if it was yes, I had a very short time to shoot, but there were more no than yes. At the beginning, I was not successful at all, so I had to walk around and just look for people and just jump on them and ask if they were okay to pose, and then I would ask the same questions, their identity, if they knew what was written on their t-shirts, and if they would continue to wear the t-shirt if now that they knew about the message.
So you would translate
yes.
for them the message?
Yes, I would translate to them, but even this was a bit challenging. There were a lot of surprises with this project because I thought that I could translate easily, but sometimes it was tricky because some messages were very in a specific time of history, or there were a sense of humor that is more Western than what our sense of humor, and also some pop culture references that I knew from afar, as maybe because I watch TV or I see Netflix, etc. But some message that for me, or some concept that for me weren't that familiar as well. So I had to use Google a lot to make sure that I wasn't translating to make sure that I was translating correctly. And then there was also another language barrier that I wasn't aware of before I started the project, is that I speak French, but in Côte d'Ivoire we speak French, there's Nushi, and Nushi is the slang, and there's also Bambara. In the marketplace, many people speak more Bambara than French, and I'm not very fluent in Bambara. And I have a bit of Nushi, but I'm not very, my Nushi is not updated. So I had sometimes I felt lost in translation as well with the people I was photographing, because how do you translate to English to French, but the French should be a French that is accessible to the person that I was photographing. And so I got the opportunity to be translated from French to Bambara by passers-by or friends of the person who was posing for me. And most of the people I photographed were young people and working in the market or doing shopping. So I had to be very fast to get their attention as enough before they change their mind. Or sometimes it is happened too. Yes, I want to pose, and then when I'm trying to ask the question or preparing for this, they say, okay, no, I don't have time, please. And they were going to their day.
These encounters are very brief,
yes,
but then you go back to your studio and you spend a huge amount of time thinking about the encounter and processing it. And so can you take us a little bit on your journey of how you would, of your reflection about what was a very brief encounter and the speed of photography, and how you took how your studio process became a way of embodying your process of reflection?
This is something that makes me that interests me a lot, is the use of technologies, the technology of today, which is digital photography, iPhone photography. I have the chance to have a good camera, so you can take a portrait, take a picture very, very quickly, and then I felt the need to spend more time with the work, so print the work, cutting out, and then use this energy that I have inside also of me, and download it, I say, on the work. And this is for me a way to process also what I had to do in such a brief time, and then embroidery, collage, and cutting, and it's like mending as well. The moment is like it's a very meditative and therapeutic practice. And so when I go in the street and I take a photograph, I know that I will have time first to even select the picture that I'm going to work with on the computer, and then print it, and then select the prints as well. Start thinking about if I want to embroider it, or if I want to cut and paste, and do any manual things. And I like to join both practices. I know that there are two schools, and some people think that analog pictures and taking time on one project is more special, and some others don't think that, and think that now we should stick to the good, what all that technology offers. But me, I don't want to choose. I want to use everything that I have at my disposal, and I really like to live with my times and use methods and techniques that are very, very old, from the centuries, the past centuries, and adapt them as well, and join them with the technology, all the possibilities that we have with technology. Also, one thing that I really like about the times that we live in is that we are free to explore whatever we want, and technology should serve the human being, and I think that this is the best way to use it, not to see it as an enemy or something that will destroy us, because we all will always feel how we feel. We always remain human. This is how I think, and there's nothing that can beat the energy of love or emotion or spirit that we cannot explain with words, but still we feel without having to have a conversation.
I was interested in maybe you're putting your embroidery, your act of embroidery, into context in this project, because with the project Ça va aller and with Albayan, you use embroidery in very different ways in each of those, and then you use it in a completely different way here, or maybe it's more similar than I imagine. And I wonder if you could talk about that, and also how you felt about working in what turned out to be 3 dimensions rather than 2.
I think it's an instinctive process. Like when I start a project, I even sometimes don't know why I'm doing, why I make these choices of technique. I believe that my work teaches me a lot about life itself. I focus also on how I feel when I'm working on the project. So for example, for this, for Yugu Yugu, it was a very soothing and comfortable and nice way to work, because with the wadding is very soft and very light, versus when I was working on when I'm working on Albayan, I should be on the table because there's a canvas and it's a square, very rigid and disciplined and organized way to work. With Savale it was different because Savale it was very small prints that I could even bring everywhere. It was part of my personal life very, very much. And for Savale I was sick and I was working from my bed. Oh. So every project is in accordance to how I'm feeling and what is happening in my life. But so my work is very much about a social phenomenon. Then there's another step, which is how I feel myself, where I stand in my personal life. And then everything blends, and then I never want to force myself to do something just because this is what I have had in mind. I let my spirit and my soul go with the work as well. And sometimes when I start a work, I don't know why, and then when I finish the piece, I'm like, okay. Or a project, there's always something that I'm learning about it, and it's quite amazing to see that my work leads me to my life path as well.
That's a question that Lisa and I actually were talking about ourselves. Is we were curious what you would say you learned from the process of doing Yugo Yugu, of both the encounters but also the entire studio process. Mm-hmm. How, now that you've come and you've seen the show on view and all the work installed, how has your thinking about the subject matter transformed over that period of time, and what have you been able to identify learned lessons from this process?
The human condition. Very much. I was very, very much touched about by my stay here. When I started the project and even what the fellowship was about. Sometimes you start something and you're not sure that you will get what you were expecting from the work. It's the first time that the work is shown, and I didn't know how people would respond to the pieces. In my imagination, the pictures hanging in the space and people meeting with the person that the portraits. This is what I had imagined, but I wasn't sure that this would be successful. But coming to right after after the airport, Ilisa brought me to the space, and people didn't recognize me. So they were interacting with the work. So I saw how people were reacting and criticizing the work, not negatively, but saying whatever they want to say about the work, and standing in front and laughing. This is exactly what I was dreaming of. And to see it without asking for it and without even planning for it, because this wasn't planned and then seeing how the people in the museum came to me to tell me exactly how they felt about the work. Even seeing how the work was reacting to people passing by and moving, and also the people I don't know who came to talk to me and saying how they felt. I remember one of the guards who is from Jamaica. In the
one of the security guards
told me that when he entered this space, he felt like he was in Kingston, and it felt familiar to him. You were here when you saw the reaction of this little boy yesterday, and so all this reaction and how people reacted to the work is, this is really what's made me think that this was a good project, and that the result was successful, and but also the warm response from everybody. I was very, very shocked and positively. I felt overwhelmed by the fact that people were interacting with the work and with each other around the work.
How do you think about knowing that the audience here can read, will understand, and will understand for the most part the idioms, the language, the cultural references of the T-shirts? How did you think about taking these photographs of subjects who don't know what their T-shirts, who don't understand the
meaning,
references of their T-shirts, and then putting the portraits into this context when you knew the audience it was returning to the audience that for whom the T-shirts were created generally?
You know, this was something that I was looking forward to see how they would react, and if they will. I was a bit worried that people would maybe make fun of the people who were on the project photographs, but this hasn't happened, so I'm quite relieved. But this is when we did the workshop.
The workshop we did was
with the students. I don't think that it is about only the meaning, because even if you get the meaning of a T-shirt, but you don't have to wear it, you're safe, it's okay. But and this is why I was really happy about the workshop as well, because even if you, especially when you understand the meaning of a T-shirt and you still have to wear it without your consent, that's something that you haven't planned to do, it's still challenging and interesting to see. So for me, the most important thing is, okay, they don't understand the message, but they haven't chosen that message, versus people who walk around in the streets with T-shirts that they own. And I would like to continue this experience to see how this would, how people would react in several other cultures. But for what happened here in Harvard, and you were there, people were quite uncomfortable to wear something that they haven't chosen to wear.
You're going to sum it up? Yeah.
For the audience, Joanna planned a workshop specifically for students who signed up, in which she brought T-shirts from the marketplace in Abidjan with logos on them, and they were all put into a bag, and they were washed and cleaned and put into a bag, and you had to select a T-shirt sight unseen, and then we put that T-shirt on with whatever saying, and then we all went up and did a walkthrough of the exhibition and spent time talking about the exhibition, wearing our graphic logo T-shirts, and then we returned to our materials lab and were invited to alter or modify the T-shirt in any way we saw fit. And so this was Joanna's way of bringing this cultural and social engagement to the Harvard campus and creating a moment of the dislocation of language, like a parallel or analog.
And she spoke to the people. Mitra and I actually were included in this. I have to say it really was disconcerting to wear a message one hadn't chosen, which I think was the point.
And I asked the same question.
And you asked, yeah, go ahead.
And I asked the same questions to them to see and recorded how they felt, what was their impression about this. And also I participated as well, and I felt uncomfortable as well. There's always this also dimension of irony, because as it's random, sometimes you find yourself in a situation that is, you don't want to be seen with this T-shirt. And then when we had to walk around the museum to go to the exhibition, it was a bit uncomfortable. But once again, one of the students told me that she was uncomfortable, but it was still okay because we were in a group. But if she was alone in a place that anywhere in the city, alone with this T-shirt, she would really be. She doesn't know if she could walk around with it.
So why are they wearing these T-shirts if they don't understand the message?
Because they don't understand the message, so it's okay. So nobody will understand. Most of the people around them don't understand, and most of the time, maybe people don't look very. Yes, they don't take the time to analyze as I do. They don't observe. They don't do all these observations that I do, and also because when these T-shirts are very cheap, maybe $1 one T-shirt, and they wear it only to go to work because it's a way to cover their body in a very cheap way. But when they have to go to celebration, or if they want to dress up, of course they don't want to wear this. They prefer to wear traditional or modern traditional outfits, wax prints or fabrics, bazin, etc.
It seems like a good moment to have you speak to what you did, the act of creating composite portraits, and how that relates to your way of processing this, the idea of representing people whose T-shirts do not represent them.
I like, when I create a project, I like to suggest feelings or initiate, open a conversation with the works. And when I was looking at the people in the streets with this T-shirt, I would sometimes find myself laughing inside, like, do they even know what they are walking around with and all? But after thinking about it, I was wondering if maybe I was judging someone else, and this person wasn't aware that I was judging, and they would never know because what they are wearing, the message is make them say something that they don't think, make them appear in a way that maybe is not accurate to who they are really, as if they were carrying someone else's thought and someone else's identity. So I felt odd. I saw them as odd persons, odd people, and this is what I wanted to create conceptually, so that we could experience this as well while we are looking at the portraits. So when you don't know, you see the portraits, you don't maybe notice, but once you are told that the pictures are processed and that this is a composition of faces of all the people from the project that are mix and match like that, I believe that it creates you realize that the face is slightly odd, and I wanted to create to recreate the sensation of feeling uncomfortable. That's why I did these compositions.
I think at one point you explained it to us as also it's as if they're wearing a mask.
As if they were wearing a mask, but the mask is on their chest. But yes, it's always the notion of identity is so fluid and so complex. We often think that it's about the physical appearance, but this also is extended to how you dress and how. And for me, it was so clear I couldn't unsee what is written on the T-shirts. And sometimes I would ask someone that I'm photographing, would you continue to wear this T-shirt like the Wonder Woman man? And I think he's not disturbed. For him, he's like, the people around me don't speak English, so this is not something that will bother me. But I think that if they were maybe coming to the US or in English-speaking countries, knowing that everybody would stare at them like this, saying, oh, you are wearing this, I don't think that they would continue. But in their environment, it's still...
We're going to ask one more question and then open it up to the audience for questions, and the microphones will come around, so if you want to think of your questions.
This takes me back a little bit, but you started talking about identity and appearance, and it struck me that in Abre, that you were working with photographs of scarification, which were cultural marks of identification. So how did you get from such distinctive marks of identification, ones that one would, other people would recognize, to this kind of questioning of how of identity, or how one was communicating identification?
Identity is at the core of most of my works. Whether from one angle to another, I'm always back to that. The project Abre was about scarification, but the last generation of people bearing scarification on their face, and it was about their identity, because I was asking myself questions about my identity. I'm from a mixed background. My parents are not from the same country. I have my family is very international, and I was wondering if how would I feel if I had scarification on my face? And I was very curious to know how they felt today about bearing scarification on their face, as it's an old practice. And as I knew that this is a practice that is fading now, at least in Côte d'Ivoire and in Burkina Faso. So if you look at all my projects, there's always this notion of identity that is explored from a way or another. Because I strongly believe that when you know yourself, you know who you are, and you explore your identity, you are stronger to negotiate that life. And even spiritually, I believe that when we know ourselves, we are more armed, if I can say. We have the possibility to understand better the other humans, and that we can that the basis of everything, like of every journey as a human, is to know yourself, and then you can learn from the others as well. So identity is one of the main topics that I like to explore through my work.
Thank you. Do we have questions from the audience?
Yes. It's
no, a little bit up. Sorry.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Clive Lawrence. I'm a student at the college. Thank you so much for being here. I was really fascinated by the question around maybe shame or guilt from wearing the clothing based off language. And I was also thinking about it as it relates to history. A lot of times the symbols that we wear invoke a certain history. It's something that we're reckoning with in a way at Harvard because of histories of slavery and things like that. So I'm wondering if you have ever thought about how historic symbols relate to clothing and a sense of shame, and how those things have developed, especially compared to language.
You speak very fast.
Oh, I'm sorry. So basically, how do you see history? So the same way that you were thinking about it with language, how do you see it when it comes to history and symbols of awareness around history, and how that shame gets impacted by historic symbols in a similar way?
I'm just an observer. I just want to witness what I see now. There are references that might be more historical according to the t-shirts. You speak about the Yugu Yugu project, right? I wouldn't say that, maybe it's not historical, but I have one of the portraits with I scored in the 80s. And I felt that this was so dated. It's a little history with a little h that comes to meet the big history. Some t-shirts, there was one t-shirt, some t-shirt can be, some of the t-shirts that I saw there were political as well. And I believe that all the t-shirts are, have a time zone, time frame, and they will become old and historical and vintage or antique in a few years. Or so if I had the opportunity to continue this project for a long time, this Ascord in the 80s would become a very, very old message that would be the witness of an era that is not and is not accurate anymore. But it could be, the project could be a historical tool as well. It depends on the messages that you see, and every message is a testimony of its time. Like one of the t-shirts is All the Feels. It's a very new expression from that I heard for the first time in the 2020s. This expression in 10 years will become, or in 100 years, maybe will be in usité.
Which one? All the Feels?
All the Feels.
I don't even know what it means.
So, yes, the historical dimension is starts always from the contemporary and becomes historical with time. So,
Thank you.
Hi, I have two quick questions. The first one is that, interestingly, most of these texts are English and not in French. So I guess the assumption is that many of these come from the U.S. Some of these shirts are secondhand, and so I guess the first question is thoughts about that, and whether you saw some that were in French. And secondly, whether you were able to stay in touch with any of your photographic subjects, or if anybody wanted to see what you were to make of the photos afterwards, and were able to see these kind of representations of them later down the line.
Okay, thank you. The question of the French and English, it's very interesting because this is something that I had to think about here, now that I'm here. And we were discussing it a few hours ago. The t-shirts, most of the t-shirt comes from the US or England or English-speaking countries. And I was wondering why all these t-shirts, because it's not only in Côte d'Ivoire, in Haiti, in South America, or in all Africa, many countries of Africa, and even in Ghana, which is an English-speaking country, you find these t-shirts mostly in English. And I am not sure, but maybe it's because in the US people are very proud to show their beliefs and to advertise their identity and say very boldly what they think. But in the French or Spanish cultures, I'm not sure. And for example, in Côte d'Ivoire, and as you were telling me, if there are people who don't want to show, they are not because they are shy, or maybe it's not in their culture to show how they feel about something very openly like that. This is a good thing that American people have, but sometimes it can be as well. We can discuss it. And the second question was?
The people, have you stayed in touch with the people?
No, I haven't stayed in touch with them, but I have their contacts because in the questionnaire they had to give me their contacts as well. So I have their contacts, and I would really like to show the work in Côte d'Ivoire, especially if it's possible to show in a very open place, like a market or a mall or somewhere where lots of people walk around. This is something that I'm really looking forward to.
Merci beaucoup d'être ici et pour ce travail. I'm curious about the whole issue of identity. What I think I learned from the exhibit is that the portraits are actually not really portraits because the faces of the individuals are not a direct photograph, that you have manipulated them and made a composite of them. So I'm just curious as to if you could talk about that, why you made that decision, what that's about, why it's not a straight-on portrait, why you manipulated the faces.
I was saying a few minutes ago that it's because I wanted to create. I am free to do whatever I want. For me, it's still portraits, even if the pictures are collages, the faces are collages of portraits. These are collages of portraits from the people only the people from the project. So for me, it's still a portrait, and I wanted to recreate this feeling of oddness that I felt when I was looking at the person walking around with the T-shirt. It's a bit, it's a artistic choice, and also a way to make people feel something about the work, and that's why I chose to do that. Merci.
Hi there, thank you so much. My question, and I want to say that I have a complete respect for the mysteries of the creative process, but I'm very curious about the decision to have the strings hang. And so I was wondering if you could talk about how you arrived at that. Was it something that happened one day and you discovered, oh my goodness, this is so, so in other words, to have each person ends at a certain place and then there's the strings.
So the plan américain is the name of the shooting of the portraits that is half.
3/4 length view.
Yes, 3/4 length view. And this is something that I chose to do because I didn't want the portraits to become too intimidating. So I wanted also to that people focus on the T-shirt and the face. And so I chose to use the strings that was hanging to the floor, so that you still have the sense of a complete person. You feel the presence of someone, and as it's moving and it's hanging, you can still have a sense, as a feeling that there's a person in front of you. But at the same time, I didn't want it to be heavy and too literal to have a full person like this. It's just an artistic choice, and I wanted also the portrait to feel lighter, to have some movement as well.
I've seen people walk by and the portraits sort of flow a little bit. It's as if you're kind of walking by somebody who's gently moving out of your way.
That's it.
One of the most lovely poetic phrases Joanna's contributed to our understanding of our own exhibition, this week, is she came and she said, oh, it's as if every portrait has roots and is rooted in the, which is her phrase, turn of phrase, not mine, but to share that.
Hi, thank you so much. This is just, is it on? Is it on? I'm loud enough. So thank you for this. I noticed that one of the photographs was taken September 2020 in the marketplace. I know it was an outside location, but you are wearing a mask, and you're the only one in the market that's wearing a mask. And
Wearing a mask.
2020 was
yes.
a raging COVID time here. I'm thinking it probably was there as well. And I was wondering, I'm not surprised that you were wearing a mask, but that no one else was wearing a mask, and that you were trying to get people to trust you and let you photograph them. Could you talk a little bit about the COVID experience and all that?
One of the most challenging aspects of this project, because I received the fellowship in 2020, right in the middle of the turmoil of the COVID-19, and I still had to work. And in this part of the market or in the city, some people weren't willing to wear the mask, and but I had to because I didn't want to be sick, and actually. Many people didn't think that COVID was real there, and it was difficult for me to get them to work with me while I was working, wearing a mask, and also I was a bit worried that I might be sick as well, and especially. My mother passed away from COVID, and many people around us thought that this wasn't a real disease. So what you have noticed is completely accurate. It was quite difficult to know, should I go out and photograph or not? How will I make them believe that I want to connect with them, and to which extent should I take risks for a project? Should I go without a mask so that they would trust me and then maybe become sick? Or should I keep the mask? It was a very complex situation and painful as well.
I remember when we were talking about, we signed a contract, and the fellowship is for a year, but when we talked to you about it, we all acknowledged, well, these are very difficult, extraordinarily tragic times, and we talked about, you take as long as you want,
Yes, but also this was. There was not lots of work to do at this time, and I wanted to work. I still wanted to work because I had this project to do, and it was every day. It was very difficult to decipher if I had to do it or not, how, when, and even when I'm back in the studio and the videographer comes to do the videos, I'm alone in my studio, but he was wearing a mask and I was wearing a mask because there were the very clear. It was at the moment where the confinement was. The confinement rules were very clear, so we still had to shoot for the process because I was working, and that's why I was even in my own studio with the mask, because the person who was recording wanted to wear a mask as well. So this was a difficult time.
Do we have time for one more question?
We have
Hi, I just wanted to first say I'm so sorry for your loss. May you continue to feel her presence with you as you walk through this life. I find your work very magnetic, and I was wondering what continues to guide you in your creativity? What continues to guide you in your creativity?
What
Continues to guide you
continues to guide me?
in your creativity.
My process is more and more intuitive, and as time goes by, as I get older, I trust myself more. I trust my process, and I trust life itself. I trust the universe. I trust everything that comes to me, and I'm completely open to what's happening. So I am working on myself to deconstruct the technicality of my work and let it lead me to what I'm supposed to do. Not only professionally, but personally and spiritually and humanly, if I can say humanly. Because even the fact that I'm showing this work here in Harvard Art Museum and the Peabody Museum, I got to discover things now from this professional time that I wasn't ready to. I didn't know that I would experience this now here. So when I start a project, I just let it lead me to what I'm supposed to say or what I'm supposed to do. And when I work on a project, it's always because it makes me feel more alive. Because I need to be convinced that this is going to lead me somewhere. And sometimes I work on projects that I decide not to show later. For example, I started a project about my mother's passing, and I decided not to show it because it was still too painful for me. But at the same time, maybe this will go out to the world maybe when I will feel more comfortable with it. And all of my series taught me something, and they are all linked at some point. It's like a carnet de route, like a path that I'm looking, that I'm always trying to understand more, and my work helps me understand myself and understand others. It helped me heal so many parts of myself that I thought I would drag with me my whole life, and now they are gone. So I'm strongly convinced that art makes us evolve and become who we are supposed to become, whether we are artists or just people who visit, are in contact with art. And this is what is the most important thing in my life, to be able to create art, to exchange with other people, to communicate without words, and to learn. Every day I want to learn. For me, a day, if I don't learn something, I feel like it's a wasted day.
Thank you. This is taking us back to the process, and I'm wondering how you decided to stop this project. So there's so many people, and you start in one place, and this collection that you got to. So how did you get to this final group of people in the market?
To stop them, how I managed to stop them?
How did you? Sorry, that was too loud. But in your own creative process, when you decided you had enough subjects, you had the subject that
it's an ongoing project.
Yeah, oh, wonderful. Okay.
It's
so next time when we see this in Ivory Coast, it might be different.
Yes, it's ongoing.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you. I was wondering what you meant by the act of repair. Like, I'm still thinking about that concept, because from your description with each person when I was walking through the gallery, it sounds to me like you place more value on the shirts than the wearer themselves sometimes. I don't know if you think that's true, but I just want you to talk a little bit more about what you meant by the act of repair.
Who's talking?
Oh, sorry, I'm right here. Yeah.
Yes. No, I don't place more importance on the T-shirt than on the person that's photographed. At the contrary, but the T-shirt is what will initiate our encounter. This is not a pretext, but this is the starting point of how we will meet and what we will talk about. So no, the T-shirt is not more important than the person. Because if the T-shirt is not worn by someone, it doesn't exist for the project.
Okay, thank you.
Please join me in thanking Joana, and please join us upstairs